Understood. Here is your summary, aligned to approximately 7,000 characters, maintaining the emotional tone, in media res opening, suspense, and natural narrative flow, ready to be placed back into your script without comments or disruption. The call came at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the tremor in my assistant's voice told me disaster had struck. Mr. Hale, we have a situation at Suite 9. There's a child here. Says his name is Leo. Leo Hale. My 8-year-old son. Left alone by the very people who once taught me that love was currency and control. I was already sprinting to my car. Don't let him out of your sight. I'm 20 minutes out. 20 minutes to comprehend the unforgivable. My parents had abandoned my child. But here's the irony. They left him in a luxury suite I owned. Every inch of that polished empire, mine. The cameras had captured their cruelty in full clarity. Welcome to my world, where karma doesn't knock. It buys the building. Hi viewers, drop where you're watching from and the time. Welcome to the family. My name is Donovan Hale, and if you believe wealth guarantees love, let me unmask the truth. I was raised inside a 17-bedroom mansion devoid of warmth. My father, Charles Hale, a venture capitalist with an iron handshake. My mother, Claudia, a socialite with a porcelain smile. They didn't raise a son. They engineered an heir. Hales don't cry, we conquer, my father would say. Pain was weakness. Failure, contamination. My achievements only mattered if they advanced their empire. I lived in perfection on paper and emptiness in reality. Then I met Mia on a flight to Chicago. A flight attendant helping an elderly woman, no audience, no reward, just kindness. Her smile was real. She dreamed of travel, studied at night, lived with roommates. She had nothing by my parents' metrics. She had everything by mine. My parents despised her. She wants your money, my mother sneered. My father's ultimatum followed. End this, or you're out. I walked away. Easiest decision of my life. We married quietly at City Hall. They didn't attend. My father sent a check with a note. You'll need this when she leaves you. I mailed it back, shredded. Mia, and I built a small life in Queens. No staff. No marble. Just freedom. When our son Leo was born, I promised I'd never love him conditionally. Never as an investment. For 5 years, we were happy. Then my father called. The board wants you back. Stop playing house. I know who I am now, I said. Then you're erased from the will. I was never yours to own. He didn't know I'd already built Horizon Ventures, carving my own path through private aviation. We created luxury airport suites, quiet worlds above chaos. Within 4 years, we owned a chain inside the same airports he'd invested in, including the crown jewel, Hale International Airport. The irony? He never saw my name on the deeds. So when Jessica called about Suite 9, I drove straight into the fortress I built. Past security. Past the legacy of a name I no longer carried. Suite 9 was elegance incarnate, crystal, leather, champagne. And there, on that white sofa, sat my son, clutching his Spider-Man backpack, eyes raw from crying. Dad. I crossed the room in 3 strides and held him. He sobbed into my shoulder. Grandma said we were visiting Grandpa's office. She told me to wait. Then, she never came back. 2 hours. My mother had left him for 2 hours, teaching him the same brutal lesson she'd taught me. You are only loved when useful. I looked at Jessica. Show me the footage. The screen confirmed it. My mother, smiling sweetly, kissing his forehead, whispering promises before walking away without looking back. Calculated abandonment. I knelt beside my son. You did nothing wrong, Leo. Nothing. This isn't about you. He fell asleep that night in my arms, small hand gripping my shirt even in his dreams. I made the call. Claudia. No more, Mom. That title requires love. How does it feel? I said slowly. Knowing the suite where you abandoned your grandson belongs to me? Silence. Panic. What are you talking about? Horizon Ventures. The company you mocked. I own every inch you walked on today. I own the camera that filmed your betrayal. She tried to reclaim control. You wouldn't dare. I won't. Because unlike you, I don't destroy to feel powerful. But understand this. You stepped into my world now. And here, cruelty is recorded. I hung up. I carried Leo to my car. This wasn't vengeance. It was clarity. My parents had built an empire of fear. I built one of choice. And while they lost everything chasing legacy, I found everything they threw away. Now I have a decision to make. Do I tell my son the truth about what blood did to him? Or protect him from that poison? What would you do? Comment below. The first time I saw Mia Rodriguez, I was running late for a meeting in Chicago that would determine whether I'd make partner at my father's firm before 30. The flight was packed, my mind was racing through projections and profit margins, and I was exactly the kind of passenger flight attendants probably hated, distracted, impatient, entitled. Then I saw her kneel beside an elderly woman in 12C. The woman had dropped her medication bottle, pills scattering everywhere under seats. Other passengers stepped over them, annoyed by the delay. But Mia got down on her hands and knees in that narrow aisle, her uniform getting dirty, gathering every single pill while talking softly to calm the panicking woman. It's okay, Mrs. Chun. We'll find them all. You're going to be just fine. There was no announcement, no performance. Just kindness so genuine it stopped me cold. When she stood up, our eyes met. She smiled, and something in my chest that had been locked tight for 26 years cracked open. Can I get you anything, sir? Her voice was warm, real. I meant to order my usual scotch. Instead, I heard myself say, "Actually, I'd love to hear about your day." She laughed, surprised. My day? That's a first. During her break, she sat in the empty seat beside me. We talked for 40 minutes straight. She told me about her night classes at NYU, studying hospitality management while working full-time, about her dream of managing a boutique hotel someday, about growing up in the Bronx with 3 siblings, sharing everything, having nothing, but somehow having everything that mattered. What about you? She asked. What do you do? I almost gave her the rehearsed answer. Venture capital, acquisitions, portfolio management. Instead, I said, honestly, I'm not sure anymore. She tilted her head, studying me. That's the most honest thing I've heard all week. When we landed, I did something I'd never done. I waited at the gate until her shift ended and asked for her number. 3 months later, I brought her home to meet my parents. The dinner was a disaster before the appetizers arrived. My mother looked Mia up and down like she was inspecting spoiled produce. So, you're a flight attendant. How quaint. I love my job, Mrs. Hale. I get to meet people from all over the world. I'm sure you meet all kinds of people. The emphasis on all kinds made it clear what she meant. My father didn't even pretend to be subtle. Donovan, could we speak privately? In his study, he poured himself bourbon and didn't offer me any. Power play number 1. She's after your money. You know that, right? She doesn't even know how much money we have, Dad. They always know. Women like that can smell wealth. Women like what exactly? My voice went cold. Don't be naive. She's pretty, I'll give you that. Have your fun. Just don't do anything stupid like getting serious. I stood up. Too late. I'm going to marry her. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Over my dead body, if that's what it takes. The next 3 months were war. My mother called daily with articles about appropriate matches from wealthy families. My father threatened to pull my partnership track. They invited me to dinners where eligible daughters of business associates just happened to be present. At a charity gala, my mother cornered me. You're embarrassing us, Donovan. That girl doesn't belong in our world. Good. Because I don't want to belong in your world anymore. Her face went white. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. When I proposed to Mia in Central Park on a rainy Tuesday, she cried and said yes. When I told my parents we were getting married, my father's response came via his lawyer, a formal letter disinheriting me, until such time as you come to your senses. The wedding was at City Hall. Mia wore a simple white dress from a vintage shop. Her family filled the small room with warmth and laughter and tears of joy. My side was empty except for one chair I'd left open, just in case. It stayed empty. But what arrived was my father's final message, a check for $50,000 with a note that read, "You'll need this when she leaves you. When you're ready to apologize, we'll consider taking you back." I stood there holding that check, reading those words, and something inside me finally broke free from their grip. Mia touched my arm. "Don't let them ruin today." I walked to the shredder in the courthouse office and fed that check through, 1 inch at a time. The staff watched in stunned silence as I destroyed $50,000. "Best money I never spent," I said. That night in our tiny studio apartment in Queens, eating Chinese takeout on our bed because we didn't have a table yet, Mia asked, "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Marrying the love of my life?" "Never." "Losing your family?" I pulled her close. "I didn't lose my family. I found it." But my father's final words at our last confrontation echoed in my head as I fell asleep. "You'll come crawling back when she leaves you. They always do." What would you have done with that check? Let us know in the comments. 3 years after our wedding, Mia went into labor on a Thursday morning while I was assembling a crib I'd bought secondhand. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly hammered my thumb instead of the nail. "Donovan," she called from the bathroom. "It's time." I dropped everything and grabbed our hospital bag. We didn't have a car, so we took a cab, holding hands in the back seat while I tried to remember the breathing exercises from our classes and forgot every single one. "You're more nervous than me," Mia laughed between contractions. "I'm terrified. What if I mess this up?" She squeezed my hand. "You won't. You're going to be an amazing father. I know because you're already nothing like yours." 14 hours later, I held my son for the first time. He was tiny, perfect, with Mia's nose and my dark hair. When he gripped my finger with his whole fist, something fundamental shifted in my universe. "Hey, Leo," I whispered. "I'm your dad. And I promise you something right now. I will never make you earn my love. You already have all of it, forever. No conditions attached." Mia was crying. "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." We brought Leo home to our small one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't fancy. The walls were thin, the radiator clinked, and our neighbors upstairs had loud arguments at 2 a.m. But it was ours. We'd built it with honesty, hard work, and love that didn't come with strings attached. I'd left my father's company 6 months before Leo was born. The final straw came during a board meeting where my father publicly humiliated a junior analyst for a minor error. The kid was 23, fresh out of college, terrified. "This is pathetic," my father had said. "If you can't handle basic projections, maybe you should flip burgers instead." I watched that kid's face crumble and saw myself at every age, being torn down and told it was character building. After the meeting, I walked into my father's office. I quit. He didn't even look up from his computer. "You'll be back."
"No, Dad."
"I won't. Because I'm about to be a father, and I refuse to become you." That got his attention. "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was staying this long." He stood up, his face red. "Walk out that door, and you're no longer my son." I stopped being your son the day I realized sons aren't supposed to fear their fathers. I walked out and never went back. For a year, we lived simply. I did consulting work for small businesses, Mia went back to work part-time, and we took turns caring for Leo. Money was tight, but not desperate. We ate dinner together, every night. We took Leo to the park on weekends. We read him stories before bed. We were happy in a way I'd never known was possible. One Sunday morning, I was giving Leo a bottle when my father called. I hadn't heard from him in 8 months. "The board wants you back," he said, no greeting, no how are you. "Your little rebellion has made its point. Time to stop playing house and remember who you are." I looked down at Leo, his tiny hand wrapped around my finger, his eyes watching me with complete trust. "I know exactly who I am, Dad. I'm a father, and that's more important than anything you ever taught me to be." "You're throwing away your legacy for what? Poverty? Pride? That woman. For love. The real kind. Not the transactional version you call family. Then you're erased from the will.
Dead to this family.
Effective immediately. Your choice. Already made it. I hung up. Mia had heard everything. Are you okay? I kissed Leo's forehead. I've never been better. But that night, after Mia fell asleep, I sat in our tiny living room and let myself grieve. Not for the money or the company or the Hale name. For the parents I'd always wished I had but never would. The next morning, I made a decision. If my father thought cutting me off would break me, he was about to learn what I was really made of. I started sketching business plans for something I'd been thinking about for years, a better way to do luxury travel. Sustainable, ethical, focused on experience over excess. 6 months later, I pitched Horizon Ventures to 3 investors I'd met during my consulting work. They believed in the vision. They believed in me. They gave me seed funding to start small. Within 2 years, we had contracts with 3 major airports. Within 4 years, we owned a chain of exclusive airport lounges. And the flagship location? Hale International Airport, the crown jewel of my father's aviation investments. I kept the name deliberately. Every time he flew through that airport, he'd see his name above a business I built without him. Leo turned 5, and we moved to a real apartment with 2 bedrooms. He started kindergarten at a public school where I knew every teacher's name. We had family dinners, neighborhood barbecues, little league games. Normal life. Beautiful life. Then my father made one last attempt at contact. A formal letter delivered by courier. Donovan, the board has reconsidered. We're willing to overlook your past behavior if you return immediately. Your wife and child would be provided for appropriately. This offer expires in 30 days. I read it to Mia, and we both started laughing. Provided for appropriately? She said. Like we're charity cases? I tossed the letter in the trash. We're better than provided for. We're happy. But my father's response to my silence was chilling. He called from an unknown number, and his voice was ice. If you won't come back to us, don't expect us to come to you. You've made your choice. Live with it. Did Donovan make the right call walking away from billions? Drop your opinion below. The boardroom war that ended my relationship with my father didn't happen overnight. It exploded over 3 brutal months that taught me everything about business and nothing I didn't already know about him. It started when Horizon Ventures landed a contract to manage luxury lounges at Hale International Airport. My father's airport. My company. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My father called the morning the news went public. You're deliberately trying to embarrass me. I'm running a business, Dad. If that embarrasses you, that's your problem. I can make things very difficult for you. You already have. For 26 years. He tried everything. He lobbied the airport board to cancel our contract. He spread rumors about Horizon's financial stability. He had business journalists write hit pieces about inexperienced startups and critical infrastructure. But here's what he didn't count on. I'd learned from the best. Him. I knew how to navigate boardrooms, handle press, and most importantly, how to win without destroying people in the process. That last part was my advantage. While he played dirty, I played smart. I delivered results. Our lounges had the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the industry. We were profitable within 18 months. And every quarter, we expanded. 2 years after that phone call, Horizon Ventures announced something that made Wall Street pay attention. We were acquiring Hale Aviation's private terminal assets. Not the whole company, just the division my father had built his reputation on. The deal was worth $200 million. Money I'd raised from investors who believed in sustainable luxury travel. Money that represented everything I'd built without him. When the papers were signed, I called him. It's done. You bought me out. His voice was hollow, disbelieving. I bought your terminal business. Consider it an inheritance exchange. You took my childhood. I took your legacy. We're even. This isn't over, Donovan. Yes, Dad. It is. I hung up and looked at Leo, who was doing homework at my desk. He was 7 years old now, smart and kind, and everything I'd never been allowed to be. Dad, why did Grandpa sound angry? I knelt beside him. Because sometimes people confuse losing things with losing control. He'll be okay. Do you miss him? I thought about that. I miss who I wished he'd been. but I don't miss who he actually was. Leo nodded, too wise for 7. I'm glad you're my dad and not like him. Me too, buddy. Me too. The acquisition made headlines. Business magazines called it a stunning reversal of fortune. My father's colleagues whispered at clubs and galas. Charles Hale's son had outmaneuvered him at his own game. But the real victory wasn't the money or the company. It was walking through those terminals, seeing the Hale name over doors I now controlled, and knowing that name represented something different now. Excellence without cruelty. Success without sacrifice. Legacy without conditions. Mia threw a small celebration at our apartment. Just us, Leo, and a few close friends. No champagne towers or ice sculptures. Pizza and beer and laughter. How does it feel? She asked that night after everyone left. Honestly, I thought it would feel like revenge. But it just feels like freedom. 3 months later, my mother tried to visit. She called from outside our building. Donovan, I want to meet my grandson properly. Please. You've had 7 years, Mom. I made mistakes. Your father, he's difficult, you know that. But I want to try. Part of me wanted to slam the door. But Leo heard me talking and came running. Is that Grandma? I looked at his hopeful face and made a decision. Come up. But Mom, one chance. That's all. She arrived with expensive gifts Leo didn't need and apologies that sounded rehearsed. She stayed for an hour, trying too hard, saying the right words with the wrong emotion behind them. After she left, Leo asked, Is she coming back? I don't know, buddy. She seems sad.
She is.
But some sadness is earned. 2 weeks later, my father sent another letter. This feud is pointless. We're still family. I wrote back just one line. Family is who shows up, not who shares blood. He never responded. A year passed. Leo turned 8. Horizon Ventures expanded to 12 airports. Life was good, stable, successful. I thought the war was over. Then came that Tuesday morning, that phone call, that moment when everything I'd built to protect my son was tested in the cruelest way possible. Mr. Hale, there's a child here in Suite 9. Says his grandparents left him. And I realized the war had never ended. It had just found new battlegrounds. Should Donovan have let his mother back in? Tell us what you think. The drive to the airport was 22 minutes but felt like 20 years. Every red light was torture. Every slow car was a personal attack. My hands gripped the steering wheel, so tight my knuckles went white. Jessica's voice kept replaying in my head. He says his grandparents left him. My parents. The same people who'd cut me off for choosing love over money. The same people who'd called my wife a gold digger and my marriage a phase. Now they'd taken my son somewhere and abandoned him. Not somewhere random. Suite 9. The premium lounge in my flagship location. The crown jewel of Horizon Ventures. They'd abandoned him in my world without knowing it was mine. I called Mia while driving. She was at a conference in Boston, 3 hours away. They what? Her voice went from confused to furious in seconds. Donovan, what were they even doing with Leo? That's what I want to know. When did this happen? Your mother called yesterday. Said she wanted to make amends, wanted to take Leo to breakfast before school. I thought. Her voice cracked. I thought maybe she'd changed. Maybe she wanted to try. This isn't your fault. I let her take our son. And I'm going to get him back. I'll call you when I have him. I hung up and pushed the accelerator harder. My phone showed Leo's location from the watch we'd given him for his birthday. Suite 9. Not moving. Just sitting there, waiting for grandparents who weren't coming back. When I pulled into the executive entrance at Hale International Airport, security waved me through immediately. Benefits of owning the place. I parked illegally and ran. The terminal was busy with morning travelers. Business people rushing with roller bags, families heading to vacations, couples holding hands. Normal people doing normal things while my world was falling apart. I took the private elevator to the 3rd floor, where our premium suites lived. Suite 9 was at the end of a quiet hallway, behind frosted glass doors with Horizon Ventures Platinum in gold letters. My letters. My company. My son. Jessica met me at the door, her face pale. Mr. Hale, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. Not your fault. Where is he? She pointed inside. Main lounge area. I gave him some juice and croissants, but he hasn't touched anything. He's been asking when his grandmother is coming back. I pushed through the doors, and my heart broke into pieces. Leo was sitting on the white leather sofa, looking impossibly small in a room designed for executives and celebrities. His Spider-Man backpack was clutched in his lap. His face was tear-streaked and red. His 8-year-old eyes held a confusion no child should ever feel.
Dad.
His voice was tiny, broken. I crossed the room and pulled him into my arms. He buried his face in my chest and sobbed, his small body shaking. I held him tight, breathing him in, silently cursing my parents with every word I'd never say out loud. I'm here, buddy.
I've got you.
You're safe now. Where's Grandma? He hiccuped. She said she'd be right back. Tell me everything that happened. From the beginning. Between sobs, the story came out. My mother had picked him up this morning like planned. They'd driven to the airport in her Mercedes. She'd been nice, telling him stories about when I was young, buying him a muffin at Starbucks. Then they'd come here. Suite 9. The fancy waiting room, she'd called it. She said Grandpa was in a meeting and we'd surprise him. She said to wait here while she went to find him. She said she'd be 10 minutes. His voice got smaller. That was a really long time ago, Dad. Did I do something wrong? Is that why she didn't come back?
No.
I pulled back so he could see my face. Listen to me, Leo. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. This has nothing to do with you being good or bad. This is about your grandmother making a terrible choice. But why would she leave me? How do you explain cruelty to an 8-year-old? How do you tell him his grandparents are so twisted by pride and hatred that they'd use him as a pawn? Sometimes grown-ups forget how to love properly. It's not your fault. It's theirs. Jessica appeared with a tablet. Sir, you asked for the security footage. I checked, Leo. Hey, buddy, can you do me a favor? Miss Jessica is going to take you to the pilot lounge and show you the flight simulator. How's that sound? His eyes lit up a little. Really? Really? I need to handle some boring grown-up stuff. I'll come get you in 10 minutes. After he left with Jessica, I pulled up the security feed. There it was in high definition, my mother walking in with Leo at 8:47 a.m. Smiling, chatting, looking like grandmother of the year. She kissed his forehead at 8:53 a.m. and told him something that made him smile. Then she walked out at 8:54 a.m., checked her watch, took out her phone, made a call, and disappeared down the terminal toward the private car pickup area. Calculated. Deliberate. 2 hours ago. My hands were shaking with rage as I pulled out my phone and called her. She answered on the 4th ring.
Donovan.
What a surprise. Where are you right now? Having brunch with friends. Why? You know exactly why. How does it feel, Claudia? How does it feel knowing the luxury suite where you abandoned your grandson belongs to me? Silence. Long, beautiful silence where I could hear her brain scrambling. What are you talking about? Horizon Ventures. Suite 9 at Hale International Airport. My company.
My suite.
My security cameras that recorded everything you just did to an 8-year-old child. Her breathing changed. You're lying. Check the website. Check the ownership papers. Then ask yourself what kind of person dumps their grandson in a luxury lounge and walks away. He was fine. He was safe. It was just a lesson. A lesson? He's 8 years old. He needs to learn that the Hale name comes with expectations. That boy is too soft, too weak, raised by that wife of yours who... I cut her off. Stop. You don't get to talk about my son or my wife. You don't get to pretend this was about teaching him anything. This was about hurting me, and you used a child to do it. If you expose this... I won't. Because unlike you, I don't need to destroy people to make a point. But hear this clearly. You just walked into my world, sat in my chair, and tried to hurt what I love most in a building I own. Remember that next time you think about what power really looks like. I hung up before she could respond. My whole body was shaking. Not from fear. From the absolute certainty that I'd just severed the last thread connecting me to the people who gave me life, but never gave me love. What would you do if your parents abandoned your child? Comment below. That night, after I got Leo home and Mia flew back early from Boston, we held our son between us on the couch and tried to explain the unexplainable. Why would Grandma do that? Leo asked for the 10th time, his voice small and confused. Mia stroked his hair. Sometimes people are so hurt inside that they hurt others without meaning to. But I didn't hurt her.
No, baby.
You didn't. She looked at me over his head, her eyes fierce with protective rage. After Leo finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, I sat in our kitchen staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call my mother back and scream. Part of me wanted to send the security footage to every news outlet in the country. But revenge wouldn't heal my son. It would just make me like them. Instead, I did something else. I called my lawyer. Tim, I need documentation. Everything from today. Security footage, timestamps, witness statements. I want a legal record that this happened. Are you pressing charges?
No.
But if they ever try to claim grandparents' rights or paint me as the bad guy, I want proof of who they really are. 3 days later, a letter arrived from my father. Not a phone call, not an apology. A typed letter on Hale Industries letterwork. Donovan, your mother's actions were inappropriate, but your overreaction is typical of your generation's softness. Families should never mix business with emotion. You've embarrassed us enough. This matter is closed. I read it twice, looking for any hint of remorse, any acknowledgement that they'd traumatized an 8-year-old. Nothing. Just corporate language and blame deflection. Mia found me in my office, holding that letter. What does it say? Everything I needed to know. I folded it carefully and put it in a file labeled Final Evidence. They're not sorry. They're just mad I caught them. What are you going to do? I looked at her, this woman who'd shown me what real love looked like, who'd built a family with me from nothing. I'm going to show them what real power is. 2 weeks later, Horizon Ventures' legal team finished negotiating something I'd been working on quietly for months. We were acquiring the last remaining asset my father actually cared about, his stake in the private terminal business at Hale International Airport. The deal was worth $300 million. Every penny raised through legitimate investors who believed in our vision. Every signature was legal, clean, unstoppable. When the announcement went public, my phone exploded with calls. Business journalists wanted interviews. My father's colleagues wanted gossip. But I ignored them all except one. My father called at midnight, his voice shaking with something I'd never heard before. Genuine shock. You bought us out? Completely?
Yes.
Every share, every contract, every asset in the private terminal division. It's done. This is a hostile takeover disguised as. It's business, Dad. Isn't that what you always taught me? Never let emotion cloud a good deal? Silence. Long, heavy silence. You did this because of what your mother. I did this because you taught me to recognize weakness and exploit it. Your terminal division was underperforming. My company was outgrowing its current infrastructure. It was logical. You're using my own lessons against me.
No, Dad.
I'm just better at them than you ever were. Because I learned something you never did. You can win without destroying people. You can build an empire without burning every bridge. You can have power and still have a soul. He hung up without another word. The next morning, news broke across financial networks. Horizon Ventures completes acquisition of Hale terminal assets. Wall Street analysts called it a stunning reversal of fortune and poetic justice. But the real moment came 3 days later when I walked through Hale International Airport with Leo, showing him the business I'd built. See that logo, buddy? That's ours. Every person who works here, I hired them. Every lounge, every service, every detail, we made it. Even Suite 9? Especially Suite 9. I knelt down to his level. You know what that room represents now. Not the place you were left. The place you were found. The place where we proved that the people who leave you don't get to define you. He hugged me tight. I'm glad you're my dad. Me too, Leo. Me too. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words from my father. You win, son. But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I'd just finally escaped. Would you have bought them out or walked away completely? Drop your thoughts below. The letter from my father arrived on a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks after the acquisition was finalized. Heavy cream paper, embossed Hale Industries logo, the kind of formal correspondence he used when he wanted distance from emotion. I opened it at my desk while Leo was at school and Mia was at work. The words were exactly what I expected: cold, calculated, completely devoid of actual feeling. Donovan, this continued hostility serves no one. Families should never mix business with emotion. Your mother's lapse in judgment was regrettable, but your response, acquiring our assets, publicly embarrassing the Hale name, proves you've allowed personal feelings to cloud professional judgment. We expected better from our son. This behavior is beneath you and beneath us. Consider this matter closed. I read it 3 times, each time finding new ways it was insulting. Lapse in judgment. As if abandoning an 8-year-old was like forgetting someone's birthday. Publicly embarrassing. As if their actions weren't the embarrassment. But it was the signature that really got me. Charles and Claudia Hale, typed at the bottom. Not mom and dad. Not even your parents. Just their full names, like I was a business associate they were formally dismissing. I'd expected anger. Instead, I felt something lighter. Relief. Because that letter was permission. Permission to stop hoping they'd change. Permission to stop waiting for an apology that would never come. Permission to finally, completely let go. I wrote back. Not a long letter. Not an emotional outpouring. Just 2 sentences. I didn't acquire your assets to embarrass you. I did it because I'm better at business than you ever gave me credit for. Consider this matter closed on my end as well. I signed it simply. Donovan. Not your son. Not with respect. Just my name. When I mailed it, Mia asked if I felt better. Actually?
Yes.
Because now there's no ambiguity. We're done. What if they try to contact Leo when he's older? Then he'll be old enough to make his own choices. But I'll make sure he knows exactly who they are first. 3 months passed quietly. Horizon Ventures announced record profits. We expanded to 15 airports. I hired 100 new employees. Business magazines wanted interviews about the Hale heir who outgrew his legacy. I turned them all down. This wasn't about revenge or publicity. It was about building something real. Then my mother called. I almost didn't answer. The number was blocked, but something made me pick up.
Donovan.
Her voice was different. Smaller. We need to talk. No, we don't.
Please.
Just listen for 1 minute. I waited, giving her exactly 60 seconds. Your father had a health scare. A minor heart attack. He's fine, but it made us think about things we've done. About Leo. About you. We want to make amends. Make amends? The words came out sharper than I intended. You want to make amends for abandoning your grandson in an airport lounge? For 30 years of conditional love? For every time you chose pride over family? We made mistakes. Mistakes are accidents, Mom. What you did was intentional. What you've always done is intentional. We're still your parents.
No.
You're the people who gave birth to me. There's a difference. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly. What would it take? For you to let us try?
I thought about that.
What would it take? An apology? Therapy? Years of consistent change? And even then, could I trust them around Leo? I don't know if there's an answer to that question. But I know this. You don't get to call once, claim you've changed, and expect everything to be fine. That's not how trust works. So, we're just supposed to accept that we'll never see our grandson? You made that choice when you left him in Suite 9. You don't get to pretend that didn't happen. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I told Mia about the call. She was washing dishes, and I could see her shoulders tense. What do you want to do? She asked carefully. Nothing. They don't get access to our son just because they're scared of their own mortality. What if they really have changed? Then they can prove it over time. But they don't get a shortcut just because they're finally facing consequences. She turned around, drying her hands. I support whatever you decide. But for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Leo doesn't need grandparents who love him conditionally. 2 weeks later, my father tried. He showed up at my office without warning, somehow bypassing security because his name was still on some old registry. My assistant buzzed me, panicked. "Mr. Hale, there's a Charles Hale here to see you. Tell him I'm in meetings all day." "He says he'll wait." I sighed. "Send him in." My father walked into my office, looking older than I remembered. Grayer, thinner, with new lines around his eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered Leo crying in Suite 9, and the sympathy evaporated. "Nice office," he said, looking around. "Better view than mine." "What do you want, Dad?" "Can a father visit his son?" "Not this father, and not this son. Not anymore." "What do you really want?" He sat down without being invited. Power play he'd taught me 20 years ago. I stayed standing, reversing it. "Your mother told you about my heart attack." "She mentioned it." "I'm 71, Donovan. I'm not going to live forever." "None of us are." "Don't you think it's time we put this behind us? Life's too short for grudges." I leaned against my desk. "You're right. Life is too short. Too short to waste on people who only love you when it's convenient. Too short to expose my son to grandparents who might abandon him again when he doesn't meet their standards." That was a misunderstanding.
No.
My voice went cold. It was calculated cruelty. "You taught me to read people, Dad. I know intentional behavior when I see it. We want another chance."
Why?
"Because you're facing mortality? Because you suddenly realized legacy means nothing if you're alone? Where was this sentiment 10 years ago? 5 years? The day you disowned me for marrying Mia?" He had no answer. "Here's what happens now," I continued. "You leave my office, you leave my family alone, and you live with the choices you made. That's it. That's the deal. And if I refuse? Then I make that security footage from Suite 9 very public. Your choice." His face went white. We both knew what that footage would do to the Hale name, the reputation he'd spent 50 years building. He stood up slowly. "You've become hard, Donovan."
No, Dad.
"I've become strong. There's a difference you never learned." He walked to the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I am proud of what you built. Even if I'll never say it again. It's not worth anything. But thanks anyway." He left, and I never saw him again. Was Donovan too harsh or exactly right? Let us know in the comments. 6 months after my father's visit, my assistant forwarded an email marked urgent. The sender, Claudia Hale. My mother. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity won. "Donovan, your father and I would like to request a meeting. Neutral location, your choice. We understand we've caused damage that may be irreparable, but we'd like the opportunity to speak with you face to face. Please consider this carefully. We won't ask again." I stared at that email for 20 minutes. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to maintain the distance I'd fought so hard to create. But another part, maybe the part that still remembered being 5 years old and hoping my parents would hug me, that part was curious. Mia found me in my office, still staring at the screen. "What's wrong?" I showed her the email. She read it twice, her expression unreadable. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I don't trust them. That this feels like manipulation. But also you want to hear what they have to say. Is that stupid?" She sat on the edge of my desk. "It's human. They're your parents, even if they've been terrible at it. The question is, can you handle disappointment if this goes badly?" I've handled 30 years of disappointment. What's one more meeting? The next morning, I responded with 3 conditions. Neutral location, 1 hour maximum, and Leo doesn't come. If they wanted a relationship with him, they'd have to earn it through me first. They agreed immediately. I chose the location deliberately. Suite 9 at Hale International Airport. The luxury lounge where they'd abandoned Leo. If they wanted to talk, they'd do it surrounded by their own cruelty. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. I arrived early, sitting in the same spot where I'd found Leo 8 months ago. The white leather sofa, the untouched croissants, the too bright sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. My parents arrived exactly on time. My mother saw where we were immediately, and her face went pale. "Donovan, is this really?"
Yes.
"Sit down." They sat across from me, and for the first time in my life, my parents looked uncertain. My father's hands were clasped tight in his lap. My mother kept touching her pearl necklace, a nervous habit I'd never seen before. "Thank you for meeting us," my father started. "You have 1 hour. Use it wisely." My mother spoke next, her voice shaking. "We know what we did was unforgivable. Leaving Leo here, the way we've treated you and Mia, the years of conditional love and impossible standards. We know we failed you as parents. Acknowledging it isn't the same as fixing it. We know." My father leaned forward, "Which is why we're not asking for forgiveness. We're asking for a chance to do better." "Why now? Why after everything?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Because I wake up every night thinking about Leo's face when I left him here. Because I can't stop hearing his little voice asking when I'd come back. Because I'm 68 years old, and I've built a perfect reputation, but I have no family left. You had family. You pushed us away. We know." My father's voice cracked. "We were taught that strength meant control, that love was weakness, that showing emotion was failure. We raised you the way we were raised, and we were wrong." I wanted to believe them. God, some part of me still wanted to believe my parents could change. But I'd learned that wanting something doesn't make it real. "Words are easy," I said. "What are you actually offering here?" "Time," my mother said. "Consistency. Therapy we've already started, individually and together. We're not asking to jump back into Leo's life. We're asking for supervised visits, for a chance to prove we can be the grandparents he deserves. And if I say no, then we accept it," my father said. "But we're not going away quietly. We'll wait, however long it takes. We'll prove through our actions that we've changed." Just then the door opened. My assistant peeked in, apologetic. "Mr. Hale, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Leo's school called. He's asking for you." Something about a project presentation. Before she could finish, Leo pushed past her into the lounge, excitement radiating off him.
"Dad."
"I got picked to present my solar system project at the science fair, and..." He froze when he saw my parents. The room went silent. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father stood up slowly, and Leo, my beautiful, trusting son, looked at me with confusion. "Dad, why is Grandma here?" I moved to him immediately, kneeling to his level. "Hey, buddy. Grandma and Grandpa wanted to talk to me about grown-up stuff. You weren't supposed to be here." "Is it about when she left me?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. My mother made a small, broken sound. Leo looked past me at her. "You never came back." I waited a really long time. My mother started crying. Real tears, the kind I'd never seen from her. "I know, sweetheart. I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life." "Why?" Such a simple question from an 8-year-old.
"Why?"
The one thing my parents had never been able to answer honestly. My father knelt down too, his knees creaking. "Because we were wrong, Leo. We were scared and angry, and we hurt someone we should have protected.
"We hurt you."
And we're so sorry."
Leo looked at me.
"What do you think, Dad?" And there it was. The moment where I could either protect my son from more potential hurt or give my parents the chance they were asking for. I took a deep breath. I think sometimes people make really bad choices. And I think sorry isn't always enough. But I also think people can change if they really try. I looked at my parents. "Can you really try?" "Yes," they said together. I stood up, keeping Leo close. "Here's what happens. You want a relationship with Leo? You earn it. Supervised visits, once a month, in public places. You prove over time that you're safe, that you're consistent, that you won't hurt him again. One mistake, one moment of cruelty, and you're done. Forever. Do you understand?" They nodded, both crying now. And one more thing, I continued. You don't get to tell Leo how to be. No standards, no conditions, no expectations beyond basic respect. You love him for who he is, or you don't get to love him at all. We understand, my mother whispered. Leo tugged my sleeve. Dad, can I ask them something? Of course. He looked at his grandparents with the brutal honesty only children have. Do you promise not to leave me again? My mother got down on her knees, ignoring her expensive dress on the floor. I promise, Leo, I will never, ever leave you again. And if I break that promise, you don't have to forgive me. Okay. He paused. I got picked for the science fair. Do you want to hear about my project? My father's face crumpled with emotion. We would love that more than anything. As Leo started excitedly explaining his solar system model, talking about Jupiter's moons and Saturn's rings, I watched my parents listen with an attention they'd never given me at that age. Maybe they would change. Maybe they wouldn't. But for the first time, they were trying. And in this lounge, where they'd left Leo behind, we were starting over. Do you think Donovan gave them another chance too easily? Share your thoughts below. The first supervised visit happened 3 weeks later at a park near our apartment. Neutral territory, public space, 1 hour limit. I stayed the entire time, watching from a bench 20 feet away while Leo showed my parents his favorite climbing structure. My mother was different.
Softer.
She laughed when Leo made silly faces, and it wasn't the practiced social laugh I remembered from galas. It was real. My father pushed him on the swings, actually pushed him instead of checking his phone every 30 seconds. When the hour ended, Leo hugged them both goodbye. Quick hugs, not fully trusting yet, but something. How did I do? My mother asked me quietly while Leo ran to get his backpack. You showed up. That's step 1. Over the next 3 months, visits continued. Always supervised. Always in public. My parents went to Leo's soccer games and cheered from the sidelines without criticizing his technique. They came to his school art show and praised his painting without suggesting improvements. They were learning to love without conditions. It wasn't perfect. My father still sometimes slipped into businessman mode, trying to turn every conversation into a teaching moment. My mother occasionally made comments about Leo's appearance that edged toward criticism. But here's what was different. When I called them out, they apologized. Actually apologized, not with excuses or justifications, but with genuine remorse. You're right, my father said after I pulled him aside at a birthday party. I was treating him like a project instead of a kid. I'll do better. And he did. Slowly, incrementally, imperfectly, they were changing. Mia remained skeptical. I'm glad they're trying, she said one night after a visit. But I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Me too, I admitted. But Leo's happy. He talks about them without fear now. That's something. The real test came 6 months into our arrangement. Leo's school play. He'd been cast as a tree in the production, not even a speaking role, but he was thrilled. The auditorium was packed. Mia and I sat in the front row. My parents had asked to come, and after some debate, I'd agreed. They sat behind us, quiet, respectful of boundaries. The play started. Leo stood on stage in his tree costume, holding perfectly still except for occasional branch waving when the wind sound effects played. It was adorable and completely unremarkable. After the show, we waited in the lobby while Leo changed. Other parents congratulated their kids with variations of "You were great" and "So proud of you." My father approached Leo first. I tensed, waiting for criticism, for comparison to other kids with bigger roles, for the usual Hale standards of excellence. Instead, my father knelt down. Leo, I've never been more proud of anything in my entire life than watching you be that tree. Really? But I didn't even talk. You didn't need to. You were present, committed, and you brought joy to everyone watching. That's what matters. Leo beamed. I did wave my branches really good. The best branch waving I've ever seen, my mother added, and she wasn't being sarcastic. She meant it. That night, after Leo went to bed, my father asked to speak with me privately. We stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd once shredded his check, where I'd built a life without him. I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to just listen. I waited. I was a terrible father. Not just difficult or strict or demanding. Terrible. I measured your worth by achievements instead of character. I taught you that love was something you earned instead of something you deserved just for existing. I made you feel like you were never enough. His voice cracked. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I'd waited 33 years to hear those words. Now that they'd arrived, I didn't know what to do with them. Why now? I asked. Why after everything? Because watching you with Leo showed me what I missed. Watching him wave those branches tonight with pure joy, watching you celebrate him for just being himself, I realized I never gave you that. I gave you expectations and disappointments. But I never gave you what you needed most. Which was permission to just be my son. Not my heir, not my investment, not my legacy project. Just my son who I loved unconditionally. And I'm sorry I failed you. My mother appeared in the doorway, wiping her eyes. We both are. We can undo the past, Donovan. But we're trying to build a different future. I looked at them, these people who'd caused me so much pain, who were genuinely trying to change. Forgiveness isn't instant. It's not even guaranteed. But seeing my father cry, hearing my mother's voice break with actual remorse, that was real. I need time, I said finally. I appreciate what you're doing, but 30 years of damage doesn't heal in 6 months. We know, my father said. We'll take however long you need. After they left, Mia found me still standing in the kitchen. How do you feel?
Confused. Angry.
Hopeful. All of it at once. She hugged me. That's allowed. You don't have to forgive them just because they apologized. What if I want to? Then you do it slowly, carefully, with boundaries intact. And you remember that Leo's safety comes first. Always. 2 months later, my parents asked if they could take Leo to a museum, just them, without supervision. The old me would have said no immediately. But they'd proven themselves consistent, safe, genuinely changed. I said yes with conditions. Public place, 3 hours maximum, check-ins every hour. They agreed without argument. When they brought Leo home, he was chattering excitedly about dinosaurs and planetary systems, and something called a Van de Graaff generator that made his hair stand up. Did you have fun? I asked. So much fun. And Dad, Grandma didn't leave this time. She stayed the whole time just like she promised. My mother's eyes filled with tears at those words. Because that was the standard now. Not excellence or achievement. Just basic trustworthiness. Actually staying. Later, as my parents were leaving, my mother pulled me aside. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for giving us another chance when we didn't deserve it.
You're earning it, I said.
Day by day, you're earning it. We lost so many years with you. We don't want to lose any more with Leo. Then keep showing up. Keep being present. Keep being the grandparents he deserves. She hugged me, and for the first time in my life, I hugged her back. It wasn't forgiveness.
Not yet.
But it was possibility. Would you trust them again after everything? Drop your opinion in the comments. 2 years later, I stood in the same luxury airport suite where this story really began. Suite 9, my flagship location, the place where my parents had abandoned Leo and unknowingly walked into my world. But this time was different. This time, I was here with Leo, now 10 years old, showing him the business I'd built. We walked through the lounge where travelers sipped champagne and worked on laptops, where flight attendants I'd hired provided service I designed, where every detail reflected values my parents never understood. Dad, tell me the story again, Leo said. About the day Grandma left me here. It had become his favorite story, oddly enough. Not because it was happy, but because of how it ended. With rescue, with justice, with proof that being left behind didn't mean being lost. You know this story by heart. I laughed. I know, but I like how you tell it.
So I told him again.
About the phone call that froze my blood. About racing to get him. About finding him on this very sofa, small and scared and confused. About calling my mother and revealing that she'd abandoned him in a building I owned. And then what happened, he prompted, even though he knew. Then I realized something. Real power isn't about money or buildings or winning business deals. It's about protecting the people you love. It's about building something good instead of tearing other people down. And Grandma and Grandpa learned that too? They're still learning. We all are. It was true. My parents weren't perfect now. They still sometimes slipped into old patterns, still occasionally pushed too hard, or expected too much. But here's what changed. They listened when called out. They apologized when wrong. They showed up consistently, reliably, without conditions. Last month, my father had attended Leo's science fair. Leo's volcano didn't win any prizes, wasn't even particularly impressive. My father hugged him anyway and said, "I'm proud of you for trying something new." That was growth. Real, meaningful growth. My mother had started therapy with a specialist in family dynamics. She called me monthly with updates on what she was learning about herself, about the patterns she'd inherited from her own cold parents, about the work of unlearning decades of toxic behavior. "I'm not asking you to forgive me faster," she'd said last time. "I'm just asking you to witness that I'm trying." And I was witnessing it. Slowly, carefully, I was letting them back in. Mia was warming up too. Last Thanksgiving, she'd invited my parents to dinner at our house. It was awkward, tense in moments, but they'd helped with dishes and played board games with Leo and left at a reasonable hour without drama. "They're not the same people," Mia had said afterward. "I'm not saying they're great yet, but they're different."
Different was enough for now.
Standing in Suite 9 with Leo, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the abandonment, the acquisition, the confrontation. But also the apologies, the therapy, the slowly rebuilt trust. Justice doesn't always look like courtrooms or revenge. Sometimes it looks like this. Standing in a building you built, with a son you raised right, watching the people who hurt you work every day to become better. "Dad." Leo looked up at me. "Do you think you'll ever forgive them completely?" I thought about that. Forgiveness isn't binary. It's not a switch you flip from angry to okay. It's a process, daily choice, ongoing work. I think I'm forgiving them a little more each day. They prove they've changed. Some hurts take a long time to heal, buddy. That's okay. But they're trying really hard.
They are.
And that matters. We left the suite and walked through the airport, my airport, past gates and restaurants and shops. Travelers rushed by with luggage and stress and destinations. None of them knew the story behind these walls, the empire built from betrayal, the family slowly healing. That evening, my parents came over for Leo's birthday dinner. Small celebration, just family, homemade cake that my mother actually helped bake. My father gave a toast to Leo, who teaches us every day that being loved isn't about being perfect. It's about being yourself. Leo beamed. My mother cried happy tears. Mia squeezed my hand under the table. And I realized something. This was the empire I'd really built. Not luxury lounges or business acquisitions. Not revenge or triumph over people who'd hurt me.
This.
A family slowly learning to love right. A son who knew his worth wasn't conditional. Parents who were genuinely trying to break generational patterns of cruelty. Later, after everyone left, I tucked Leo into bed. "Dad, I'm glad you didn't give up on Grandma and Grandpa." Even after what they did?
Yeah.
Because now I have grandparents who actually love me. And you have parents who are learning. That's better than nothing, right? Out of the mouths of 10-year-olds comes wisdom that takes adults decades to learn. You're absolutely right, buddy. That is better than nothing. And Dad, I'm glad you built that airport. Why is that? Because now when we go through there, it reminds me that even bad things can turn into good things if you don't give up. I kissed his forehead, my heart full of pride and love and hope. Some stories don't end with perfect resolution. They end with progress, with people trying, with second chances carefully given and carefully earned. They end with empires that represent not what you took, but what you built. Not who you destroyed, but who you protected. My parents left Leo in Suite 9 thinking they were teaching him a lesson about not being good enough. Instead, they taught all of us, that being left behind is just the beginning. That real power comes from mercy, real strength from forgiveness, real legacy from love without conditions. I walked through my airport now, our airport, and every light represented not triumph over my parents, but freedom from what they'd once made me believe about myself. That I had to earn love. That I had to be perfect to be worthy. That family was about control instead of connection. They'd abandoned Leo thinking it would hurt me. Instead, it freed us all. Thank you for following Donovan's journey with us. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think about family differently, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next powerful story. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts, your own experiences with family, or what this story meant to you. Your words might inspire someone else who needs to hear they're not alone. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs encouragement, and remember, being left behind doesn't mean being lost. Sometimes it means you're finally free to become who you were always meant to be. See you in the next story.